like science.
I like science.
I like science.
There we go.
It's shield modulation again on
Yeah,
first
right.
contact day of all times.
Yes, welcome. Happy first contact day, everyone. And let's hope that the Star Trek future that we've seen actually comes to pass because
That would
things
be
are so
nice.
bad.
Yeah, things are bad.
Things are so bad right now.
Get to
But
that post-scarcity society.
yeah, it's just that's the thing though, is that the people that want to keep it in place are the people who are the rich people who are
Yeah,
benefiting from it while, squeezing us for every last red cent.
yeah, people
So
that profit from scarcity, but then
yeah,
eventually they'll drive up costs for profit so much that there will be no longer people buying product because they cannot afford it. And then what
yeah,
happens?
yeah. When you have no consumers, what happens then, rich people? Hmm?
That's the thing about anti-Marxist is because they're so anti-Marxist, they don't understand Marxism. And that the whole point of Marxism is that if the owners of capital uh, drive such a wedge between labor and themselves, that there will be a revolution.
Mm,
And yet we've seen since the Reagan years the wage gap increase like exponentially over the years to the haves and the have-nots,
hmm.
that inflation has increased, housing prices have increased, but minimum wage has not.
No, it's been almost 20 years
Yeah,
since minimum wage was increased.
yeah. So
That's
there's
obscene.
just no understanding of Marxism, and so they have no understanding how to prevent it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's almost like they're going to create the very thing they hate through misunderstanding of it.
Isn't that the truth?
Hmm.
Because these people, for all the money they have, aren't necessarily emotionally or socially intelligent.
Right.
So,
Yeah, because it's like egotism and libertarianism is no system based on greed can be sustainable
mm-mm.
because the oligarchy, the billionaires, they have no understanding of the meaning of the word enough. And so nothing will ever satisfy them. And so everything they ask for, if you give it to them, they're just going to ask for more. It's that old thing, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all projection too, because they say the same thing about labor rights and whatever else. And any rights that we can scrape by is if you give them this. If you give them a weekend, they're going to ask for half the week off, which would be nice, actually. And there's some countries that do that, that they only work 3 to 4 days a week and they still have production up because they don't get burned out.
Yeah, it's
And then they
just,
can do cool stuff with their leisure time and have a satisfying work-life balance. Like look at most of Scandinavia, some of the happiest places on the planet.
yeah,
Happiest countries, whenever they do that metric, you find, Finland way up there.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like they all think that you have to live to work. I don't live to work. I work to live.
Yeah.
Work is the thing that I do so that I can enjoy my off time and do the things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird.
It is.
Anyway, Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah.
Back here,
We're
Deep
shield
Space Nine.
modulation. That's
Yeah,
Brandy. I'm Dave.
yeah. I'm Brandy. That's Dave, and I'm a little muddled today, so I apologize.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
recording a little later because I had some downtime after working today. We could
and
have recorded
that's
earlier.
fine. No, it's fine. Downtime is a good thing,
Yep.
especially when you've been working so much
Yeah, and
overtime.
let
It
this episode settle a little before we talk about it.
Yeah. It's not, I don't know how it can settle exactly because it's quite unsettling, actually.
True. Well, just give it time to cook while you come up with
Yeah.
things to say about it,
Yeah.
if we're even
Yeah.
thinking about things to say about it.
I don't necessarily
Give
do
it
that. I like to
space.
just wing it, you
Yep.
know? I don't prepare. I mean, like I take down some notes about the things that I want to remember about the episode, but I don't like write out a commentary or
Well, there's one thing you said during the opening credits, but there is a cold open before we get to it. But it was with the Enterprise being parked at the station. It's
It's
like,
been that way
when
for
are
a
they
while.
parked there every week? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're delivering the baton because, that's kind of what they did early on is they had to have the Enterprise come to Deep Space Nine to kind of hand off, is like legitimize the series by having Jean-Luc there.
Yeah. Well, it made sense. Actually, all of that stuff made sense. It's just why is it still there after 6 seasons?
Yeah. It's like, why is the Enterprise there?
Yeah, it's just
Doesn't have to be there. It was there and then it was gone, but in the opening credits, it's still there.
yeah, it's weird. Just
Yeah.
weird. Because yeah. It's not like they're gonna come by all the time. It's in deep space. So
Well, it's
hence the
not
Deep Space Nine.
quite as bad as the Mission Impossible opening credits that would show you scenes from the show you're about to watch. It's like, why are you showing me all these spoilers of the thing I'm about to watch? It's like, just have a standard opening. You don't have to edit scenes from the episode we're about to watch.
I hate to tell you this, but a lot of television shows, action television shows sort of thing, did that.
Yeah, MacGyver seems like something that would do that. Though MacGyver felt more like a greatest hits kind of thing where they took clips from multiple episodes and had that in the opening credits.
Yeah, that's basically what they did. It was clips that after you've watched it for a season, you've seen all of those clips, and
Yeah.
so
But from the episode you haven't seen yet, that's just weird. That's a weird decision.
it is a weird decision. So
But yeah,
anyway, the
the cold open,
episode, yeah, cold open, Deep Space Nine, season 6, episode 11, Waltz,
Waltz.
Waltz.
And I can see
Yes,
why it's called that, but we can get into that once we get into the plot proper.
yes, 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 yes. Basically, it's it's not a bottle episode because we do go back and forth between Worf on the Defiant with his crew and also Ducat and Cisco. So, but it's really that's pretty much it. It's just those two things. Well, except
Yeah,
actually that's not true. They start out on the Honshu, which
right.
bless you.
Yeah, and gets
Sorry.
destroyed.
Han, get it, Honshu.
So, yep,
Sorry.
Honshu. Honshu, yes.
Yes, terrible joke. Yeah, it gets destroyed. Some people have activated their um beacons,
Yeah,
those things.
yeah,
The beacons.
rescue
Yeah,
beacons,
we'll call it that.
emergency
Rescue beacons.
beacons.
Yeah, distress calls, whatever, distress signal. That's it. And but there's this conversation that happens between Cisco and Ducat
Hmm.
before all of that happens. And
Yeah, Ducat's in the brig on the Honshu being delivered to his arraignment, I guess,
mhm.
holding until they can arraign him for trial, which won't take place until after the war, which that was a weird choice because it's like, how do they know when the war's going to end? He could be in holding for who knows how long.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, isn't it? And that
Yeah.
happens in real life all the time.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But yeah, they're supposed to be going to Starbase 621. So I don't have any idea where that is.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, think of Starbase 80 being a thing. Starbase 621.
hmm
It's like, how many star bases do they have?
Well, the Alpha Quadrant's pretty big.
I guess so.
It's pretty big. And, I don't know if it'd be interesting to find out, and I'm not counting the books in this, that what happened after, the events of the series finale, excuse me. And if they ever actually went through into the Gamma Quadrant and started establishing a presence there, an official
Right.
presence there. So, especially, I mean, I would think you would want to do that just to keep the eye on the Dominion.
Well, that was part of the Dominion's issue with the Alpha Quadrant was people coming in and like settling and starting to like colonize and explore planets in the Gamma Quadrant. It's like, hey, this is stay off our patch.
They don't own everything
Yeah.
in the quadrant.
Well, aren't they called the founders? And so there's this idea that they are the Gamma Quadrant species.
So what?
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't mean you get to decide who lives there and who doesn't.
Yeah.
That's racist.
Well,
Specious.
it's kind of both ways because it's also anti-colonialist. It's like, hey, this is our place. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Stop trying to come in and settle. But yeah, I can see the other way too. Is like, hey, you've got all this area to explore. You're not using it. Why can't we come in and settle some of these planets that you're not using?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Just a thought. Just a thought. But anyway,
yeah,
so yeah, it's interesting because Ducat is he's wacko at
well,
this point. He's acting very normal,
yeah.
but this is not the Ducat we know.
Well, he had a break after his daughter died, but isn't
Yeah,
this
Zial.
after he got, or this is before he gets the paw wraith
Yeah, that's
inside
much
him?
later in the
That's
season.
later
Or is it
in
the
the
beginning?
same
Is it
season. I think it's the end of this season, I think.
yes, because that's the whole thing. That's how Jadzia gets it, is because
Yep.
of the paw wraith inside him.
Which
And
is a little
so
confusing when we're doing the random viewing of episodes is to remember what happened when.
I
Because
know.
when he's behind the brig and Cisco's visiting him and they're having this tense conversation, about trials and accusations and, whether he's going to argue for the prosecution, is this thinking us, oh yeah, he had Shadzia killed. And it's like, wait, no, that hasn't happened yet.
Nope.
So he's not being imprisoned for that. He hasn't killed her yet.
Nope.
So
And
yeah,
and it
and she's
technically,
even in this episode,
yeah,
Jadzia.
it could technically be argued that Ducat didn't kill Jadzia. It was the paw wraith, but he, yeah, don't even
He
get me involved at
orchestrated it.
this. Yeah, don't get me into the semantics of it.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, that's like saying the bomb killed somebody and not the person who planted the bomb. If you
right.
planted a bomb, you killed people.
Yeah.
There is a connection there. There is, a cause and effect.
Well, at least at the end he gets yeeted into the fire caves. So
Yes.
there is justice.
Spoiler, but then that's the whole point of this podcast is you probably should have already seen Star Trek because we're just
Yeah.
all over the map. And so this isn't a watch along. This is
No.
for people more familiar with Star Trek and,
Yep.
its many episodes. Uh,
So,
yeah.
so go ahead.
Speaking of accountability, is
Mm.
that seems to be something Ducat avoids.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's everybody else's fault but his.
Yep.
It's like a Led Zeppelin cover song. Was that Sister Rosetta Sharp originally sing that song? Nobody's fault
Mm.
but mine. But yeah, it's the opposite of that. Is everybody's fault but his,
Mm.
which is typical of fascists and whatnot, is or abusers in particular, is to blame the victim for the
Always.
abuse. It's like,
Yep.
look what you made me do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I didn't make you do anything. You chose this behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have to have something other than themselves to blame for their horrendous actions.
Yeah. Because the Bajorans did not invite them there.
No.
They just wanted resources that Bajor had, and so they just decided, well, we're just going to take those, and
Hmm.
we're going to make all these people dig them out because why should we do the work?
Yep. Yep.
So,
Just this belief that everything belongs to them that
mhm.
doesn't, and that might makes right. So if they can forcefully take it, then yes, it belongs to them.
Yeah,
It's bully
and
behavior.
it is bully behavior, and that's why the Maquis were right to fight the Cardassians when they were evacuating all of these worlds that had humans on them
Hmm.
because they were going to give them back to the Cardassians or whatever. And yeah, so you can have your thoughts on the Maquis, but they were right about the Cardassians, and it comes to fruition big time in Deep Space Nine.
Right.
So, which I appreciate because they planted that seed in Next Generation. And I appreciate that Deep Space Nine took up that mantle and furthered the story. Because, it could have been something like we never hear anything about it ever again. But the Cardassians are just such a great villain that
Right.
you gotta have more
Well,
of them.
yeah, they're space fascists. They're space Nazis.
Yep.
Because, yeah, you have space Romans, you have like space Japan, which is kind of what the Balkans were kind of.
Mm. What
But,
are the Klingons then?
well, the Klingons are, yeah, because Romans, Klingons, Klingons seem like Mongolians,
I like that.
so
Oh,
yeah.
especially with those mustaches. Anyway,
Early on specifically, yeah, that or they kind of like a halfway between like Mexican Bandito and Mongolian warrior.
mm,
It's like the original design of the Klingon kind of had that look. It's like
yes.
somewhere in between those things.
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah, we know the Romulans are based on Romans easily.
Mm-hmm.
All the intrigue and manipulation and imperialism, backstabbing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just interesting because of course our mythology, the story of Romulus and Remus and their mother who was a wolf, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, Romulus and Remus, they were raised by a she-wolf. So yeah.
Yeah. And just so it's to me that's kind of weird that they called themselves Romulus and Remus. But
Well, that's what we get from Roddenberry.
yeah,
You
I
know,
know.
he created this universe, and so these are parallels, and he just used terms that I guess we would understand, and we'd be able to see the allegory that he's painting, you know.
Yeah. It's a little on the nose, if I
It
say so.
is,
I
but
say so.
there's a lot of a lot of science fiction that is like that.
Yeah.
I mean, fantasy's like that too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, the Harry Potter universe is full of that sort of thing. Like
Mm,
Slytherin,
mm-hmm.
Hufflepuff, there's just terms that you're like, oh, yeah, I see what you're getting at there.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about this conversation that they have
Right.
in the cold open and how
The first of many.
calm, yeah, how calm both of them are.
Mhm.
And Cisco is being really, what is the word I want to use here?
Subdued?
uh no, not subdued so much as just checking in to make sure Ducat's okay and
Right.
apologizing, said, I'm sorry you lost your daughter in this way, it was terrible and all these things, just being almost empathetic
Hmm.
about it while being wary at the same time.
Well, he's a parent in his own right.
Yeah.
You have Jake, and he also helped look after, is her name Kyrell, something like that? Ural? I can't remember her name. But anyway, he helped look after her for about a year.
Yeah, Zial is who you're talking about.
Zial. Okay. See, I couldn't remember the name.
Well, I said it earlier, but that's
I,
okay.
I it didn't stick. Uh, Zial?
Zial.
Zial. Zial.
Zial.
So yeah, he and Kira looked after Zial for a year, so practically a daughter of his own, and so he can understand that loss.
Yeah.
But Ducat wasn't even that close to her to begin with, and then they had like a reunion, and then he lost her.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much does he really care that much after her, other than being a part of his ego, as
Yeah.
in some people's offspring
Yeah.
is like their little mini-me's rather than being persons in individuals of their own right.
Well, that's the interesting thing, though, is Ciel, she was so different from other Cardassians. And
Well, yeah.
she was, well, she's not fully Cardassian either, but if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
it all
isn't
gets
she half
muddled in my brain.
Bajoran or something like that?
I think yeah, I believe she is half Bajoran, if I remember right. I could look it
Yeah.
up, but I'm not going to because that's not what we do here.
No.
So she wanted to be an artist. She was always drawing,
Hmm.
and she was gentle, she was empathetic, she was sweet, she was bright, all of these things that Ducat is not
Yep.
in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, I I personally think that he really did think he was protecting her by abandoning her to
Right.
Cisco and Kira, but at the same time, he was very upset about her death, and it's clear that he's just going further and further down into the abyss, and just he's putting on a brave face in this opening credit sequence or before a cold open, and but
Well,
we'll
he is
see
very
later.
proud.
Yeah, but we'll see later
Hmm. But
that yeah, his head is messed up.
Yeah, this conversation, it's tense. There's a lot of subtext, and I think unless it's like something really elevated, because a lot of television is made now for people who like a second screen kind of thing,
Hmm.
TV being made for people who are on their phone while watching. But this, you kind of have to pay attention. You have to note the subtleties,
Yes.
and that what's being said isn't necessarily what's being said.
Hmm.
And you can tell they're each kind of playing chess with one another and kind of filling each other out while they're having this conversation. Because, yeah, it's like you said, Cisco's checking up on him because, there's this Dr. Cox, I guess,
Hmm.
that's been tending to Ducat after his mental break. And that Cisco comes in and asks him if he's okay and, to talk about losing Zial because it's a topic that Ducat kind of tries to avoid because it's a trigger for his mental break. And so, he avoids talking about it when it's the source of some of his madness, I suppose.
Yeah, I do appreciate that when Cisco asks, "Can I get you anything?" and he said, "A bottle of Canar and an Orion slave girl." I'm like,
Yep.
dude, come on.
Yeah, he's just
Be
got,
respectful.
yeah. And the wry smile that Cisco gives and then says, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, he's
He
not
doesn't
gonna
say
do
no. He
that.
doesn't, doesn't take the bait. He just, he returns one barb for another.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's clear where they stand with one another. But as they're having that conversation, uh, suddenly they get some bangers dropped on them, and the ship starts
Red alert.
shaking and
Red
red
alert.
alert, and yeah, they're getting hit by some Cardassian vessels.
Cardassian cruisers,
Yeah,
big boys.
yeah,
We don't see them. We
yeah.
just see the Honshu. And Cisco is walking out of the cell, I guess you would call
Hmm.
it, room, etc.
Yeah,
And
brig.
on his way to the bridge, I'm sure. And
Yep.
explodey things are going to happen. And it just after that cuts directly to the opening credits.
Well, it cuts
So
to Deep Space Nine, where I think was it Kira walks in to announce
I thought that was
that.
after the credits.
I thought it was before the credits, kind of as a but I can't remember. It's been what, hours since we watched the episode?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Because
Either way,
yeah,
it doesn't
you
matter.
would think you'd want to drop the credits after the announcement that the ship was destroyed rather than before to
Yeah, I
kind
would.
of have that tension as the credits roll.
Well, I thought that the tension would be better if you just have Cisco leaving the room and there's an explosion and then it's credits. That would have been
Yeah,
way
I
more
could see that
tense.
too. Yeah,
But
because that
in a
scene on the control room of Deep Space Nine seemed to take a little while
yeah.
because,
Well,
a lot of people were there.
that's the thing. What happens is okay, the ship is destroyed, right? And Kira's telling everyone, and Worf is going out on the Defiant, and they're going to look for Cisco, of course, and rescue other survivors because there are distress signals.
Uh,
And she, what?
Oh, well, there's also another assignment to kind of
I
a
was just
ticking
getting
clock
to
sort
I
of
was just getting
situation.
to that. I was
Right.
just getting to that. So, but there's this convoy that is coming through with a lot of Federation armed people to help fight in the war, and they will be completely unguarded if the Defiant doesn't get there to escort them. So he basically has a total of 52 hours to get to that rendezvous point, which means it's going to take 12 hours just to get to the area where the Honshu was destroyed
Yep. And then 12
and
hours to get
to get
back.
to that. So basically they have a very short time window to
Yep.
find Cisco, and it's stressful, very stressful. And of course there are certain people who don't like that at all. We'll talk about that later, Dr. Bashir. And
Right.
but
Well,
yeah,
Chief O'Brien too.
yeah. Well, those two are thick as thieves, of
Yeah.
course. They're always going to have each other's backs.
Yep. Wow,
And
a Irishman and a Englishman getting along. Hmm.
I know, right? And the thing is that I understand their position, but at the same time, it's an either or situation. You can't have it both ways. You can't do both. If you run out of time, you have to go get this convoy. You have to
Right.
go take care of them. Otherwise, it's going to be a blow to morale, to the fight in general, because those troops are just lost now. They're just all dead, etc. So this makes sense why they have this time limit. And of course, we all know deep in our hearts that they're going to find Cisco, but
Yeah.
it's pretty tense.
Well, Kira even announces when Bashir, speaks up that she brought up the same concerns
Mm-hmm.
and that the order stands,
Yep.
that they are not to dawdle. They can go look for Cisco, but when the time comes, they need to leave and go escort this convoy because otherwise they're unprotected.
Yeah.
And the Defiant needs to be there to give them some kind of defenses.
Yeah.
Because I
The
guess they're
good.
using some kind of pathway where they're not detected, and once they're out of that, they're just sitting
Yeah.
ducks.
It's the good of the many outweighs the good of the few or the one sort of
Yeah.
situation. So, which that is the thing. It's like, do you rescue the one person, or do you rescue all of these people who are going to be fighting for your side?
Yeah,
So,
that's the tricky thing about utilitarianism is when it comes to the one,
mm-hmm,
is like how important is that one person? Because we've got that Strange New Worlds episode that just brings up the ire is the one where they have to sacrifice children to run their luxury cities.
mm-hmm,
Is that they drain energy from these children in order to support these elevated buildings so they don't fall down into this lava world. When they have a moon right next door that they could terraform and live on, but
yeah, and
forget
people
that.
are already living on that moon.
Yeah,
People who
that they're
didn't want to
treated. Yeah,
keep people who didn't want to give
yeah,
up their children to
mm-hmm.
just be used as a battery and have their lives sucked away.
Yeah, just as a
And
matter of convenience.
yeah, the look on Pike's face when he realizes what's happening, and oh, he
Hmm.
tries to stop it. He
Yeah.
tries so hard.
So
Ugh,
yeah, there's
I hate that episode.
yeah, levels of utilitarianism where you're like, well, the one person that suffers for the good of the many is like, is it worth it in this instance? And you could think in the instance of Cisco, that's part of the job.
Hmm.
Cisco understands that his life is could be forfeit in favor of the lives of many others. And so he would himself refuse to go search for himself if
Hmm.
it was going to cost the lives of 30,000, which I think is the number they arrive at.
Yeah,
30,000 troops.
yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, ethical debates. Anyway, so yeah, they're off. They're gonna go look for Cisco. Meanwhile, we find out that they escaped, that Cisco and Ducat escaped in a shuttle. At least Cisco was unconscious
Yeah, he got
because he
burned
got
and he had his
arm broken in
arm
like 13
shattered.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't know how to use the bone knitter thing, and so he just put this weird cast on it, which is actually, it was shiny. It
Yep.
reminded me a little bit of
Yes.
C3PO.
Yeah, yeah, it had that brace on it, so
Yep.
you can't move your elbow and just be in more pain. It's to brace it and hold it in place so the bones can mend. But
Yeah.
yeah, this Ducat even says, "I'm not a doctor, so I did what I could." And Cisco's grateful and thanks Ducat and says, it's enough, it's plenty. You've done plenty.
Yeah. But things start to get weird pretty early on. Like Ducat will jerk his head in a direction like he's hearing
Oh
something.
yeah, and then blames
And
it on
the
the
wind,
wind or rocks shifting.
mm-hmm, etc. And
Yeah.
we all know that ain't what happened.
Well, yeah, eventually we can see that he's having conversations with other people because we get a Jeffrey Combs in this.
Oh, even though it wasn't a real Wayoon, still, I will take any opportunity to
He
see
was there
Jeffrey
on
Combs.
set. I mean, yeah, it was a fantasy version of the character, and
Yeah, because
yeah,
Ducat's mind is splintering, basically.
and yeah, you can see it's a subconscious, and it's all these people humiliating him.
Mm-hmm.
As Wei Yun demanding that he kill Cisco. because why is he playing these games?
Hmm.
And meanwhile, Ducat keeps seeking Cisco's approval
Yeah.
as if he needs to be justified in his actions. That's something he requires that for all the people he's killed, that he should be justified for doing it, and even gives excuses, but that's to come later. But yeah, there's a lot of the pitting of these two actors against one another, and it's fantastic. This is an actors
Mm-hmm.
episode, I think, because it's
It really
just
is.
these trained actors just in a small space just going off on one another. And it reminds me of several things. There's a chapter in The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky, sorry, I lose my voice there, called The Grand Inquisitor. And it's about Jesus Christ returning during the Inquisition. And he's taken in by the Inquisitors. And just this conversation between the Inquisitor and Jesus is like that we don't need you now. We've got it handled. That people don't live by bread alone, but we have other ways through fear, through manipulation, through all these methods to keep people in check, is that we don't need you anymore. And so we're just going to crucify you again.
Alex, I will take missing the point for 5,000.
Yeah, that's the part of the story. One of the main characters, because really, like a lot of Dostoevsky, it's a story about murder and the conscience, stuff like that. A lot of similarities between Poe and Dostoevsky with
Mm,
murder and the conscience.
yeah.
But yeah, there's four brothers, and their father dies, and one of them killed him, and you kind of figure out through the telling of the story who did it. And one of the characters is this student. One's a priest, and there's this conversation that one of them's sick, and the devil shows up and tells the story as they're having a hallucination.
Of course, because
So
why not?
yeah, love scenes like this. Another one's in 1984. George Orwell's 1984 with the interrogation scene at the very end is just the pitting off of these two people as they kind of play around with each other's perspectives, and with 1984, it's like the four lights thing is trying to alter your reality, and it's like, will you betray the person you love? Because this guy's got a fear of rats, so you put a cage with some rats in it on their head.
Mm.
And it's like eventually, you turn, because eventually you will. It's just very bleak, but yeah, you can see that happening between these two is Ducat kind of trying to manipulate Cisco, and Cisco doing the same back.
Yep. Well, Cisco
Cisco knowing
has,
something's off, and
yeah,
yeah.
has the distress beacon cabinet sort of thing. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
small cabinet.
Well, it's very cool, very futuristic looking, and it's got little flashy lights and little readouts and stuff on it, but it looks like, like a HVAC kind of thing,
Hmm.
like an air purifier or something.
Yep.
A space heater, it's got that kind of look. It's portable. It's just something you can pull from the shuttle and set up to launch an emergency beacon. And Ducat saying that he turned it on, but he didn't tell it to signal anyone in particular. So it could go to the Dominion or it could go to Starfleet. It's
It
like
could go, well,
anyone,
anyone could
yeah,
hear it. Yeah.
anyone could hear it. So.
Yeah.
And I love the line that Ducat says is like, well, no matter who finds us, they'll find, an ally and a prisoner.
Hmm. Yep.
And doesn't that seem fair? And Cisco's like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, and Cisco, of course, knows that since he knows something's not right, when Ducat says he's going to go out, and I don't even remember what he was going to do, go check something, go
It's one of those things he
check the
hears
weather,
again and
etc.
has a
Yeah.
conversation with another
Yeah. But Cisco doesn't know that's what's happening.
Cardassian. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Cisco
has
doesn't
one
know
of
that's,
his breaks.
yeah. So when Ducat's gone, he looks at the HVAC cabinet and he turns it around and sees that on the back it's actually flashing that the signal is not
Yeah.
working. And so he's like, okay, something's seriously wrong here. But it's Ducat, so of course something's seriously wrong here.
Yeah.
And then he's going to get that signal working again every time Ducat storms off to have one of his
Hmm.
episodes.
Yep. Or to go forage for food because they have soup, which is a
Mm-hmm.
fun scene. Because Cisco, being from a family that cooks,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, you're putting too much of that in. This needs salt, it needs pepper.
Yeah.
And again, Ducat's looking for approval
Mm-hmm.
because once he gives him salt and pepper, he looks at him like, eh? And
Yeah,
Cisco just
yeah,
says,
yeah,
better.
yeah. He's like,
Not
yeah,
good,
oh.
better. And you can see it kind of stabs, Ducat a little bit. It stings,
Yeah.
but not enough for, Ducat to really show his frustration. But yeah, it's interesting how much he needs Cisco to appreciate him or to validate him.
Yeah.
He needs that external validation for some reason because he's not getting it internally, though he will eventually
Mm-hmm.
when he finally breaks and comes to a realization as to who he is, which is dangerous.
Yeah. And it's sad, really, because it could have gone another way, but
Yeah, there's always that chance of redemption, and it seems odd because, I was listening to the Magic Tavern earlier today. It's a podcast, improvised podcast about Earthling who comes to a fantasy realm, and there's like a wizard named Usador and a shapeshifter that's usually in the form of a badger named Chunt. And they had a warlock on this particular episode. And this warlock was imprisoned in like a magical cell by Usador and then has vowed revenge and has been seeking a way to kill Usador since, and then showed up in this episode. And all the while has been training to learn how to, take out a wizard. Has already killed two wizards, one by accident, one not. And has learned from, in his studies how to move the stars. And so he's been doing that. And they're like, well, doesn't that fuck up sailors? It's like, how many shipwrecks have you caused? And he's thinking about it. It's like, what do you mean? And then how many of those ships were delivering food and how many people have starved
my
because
God.
it turns out this warlock's incidentally killed thousands of
Of
people
course.
through moving the stars around. He's like, and all this is taking place while villains have been disappearing from the Foon, which is this magical land. And they're debating whether he's fits as a villain or not. And he's like, well, that's a kind of villainous thing, but then you also feel regret for it. And villains typically don't regret their actions unless, it's a mistake. They don't regret killing people. They regret being exposed or, failing, the things that would hurt them personally, but don't hurt others.
Mm.
And so because he, regrets hurting others, then he's not a villain. And you get that with Ducat here is, does he regret all the people he's killed? Because doesn't it end up being like in the millions,
Mm-hmm.
the Bajorans that died under his hand, under his rule?
Yep.
And all justified by him as being just because so many guards got killed. 200 guards got killed in this one insurrection. So he kills 200 Bajorans because that's justice, that's fair. Never admitting that they shouldn't be there in the first place
Mm-hmm.
because, of course not. He even says that they're racially superior, that Cardassians are superior to the Bajorans who, and that's the excuse people like this make.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with supremacy and racism and fascism is this unproven fact that you're naturally superior because you're born a certain way. That if you're born white, that you're naturally superior, and there's no evidence to support that.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that also is that it gives you no imperative to improve yourself. By being born a certain way, that's enough. You don't have to improve because you're already better than other people, so why bother? You don't have to achieve anything. You don't have to better yourself in any way. You don't have to improve upon yourself anyway. And so you become stagnant. And that's what happens to, fascist societies of fascist people. And that's why you get this, confederacy of dunces. You get morons that just collect power and never improve themselves because they lack emotional intelligence and they lack any motivation outside of greed and power and putting down others to make themselves feel better. And that's
Yeah.
the Cardassians for you. That's their society, at least the ones in power.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, people who behave that way, the people that you've just described, they actually, they act like they believe that they're better than everyone else, but deep down inside they know they're not. And that's why they go after anything that
Hmm.
fractures that self-image.
Yeah. And that's why they'll throw tantrums too, you'll notice. Anytime
Mm-hmm.
that reality is shaken, is that's why all these books about like Black history are being pulled off the shelves, or any sign of Black excellence is being
Mm-hmm.
erased from archives, is because it shows that this is an illusion, that the superiority of the white race is an illusion. It's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
It's and the whole thing about, that slavery was actually good for the slaves. It's like, no, it
No,
wasn't. They act like
absolutely
it was
not.
an internship, and it's like, no,
No, no,
yeah,
no. They were slaves. They were whipped. They were beaten. They had food withheld from them. The women were raped and
mhm,
bore the children of their oppressors,
yeah,
etc. Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Thomas Jefferson, for
Oh,
crying out loud.
fuck you, Thomas Jefferson.
Um, and they act like they were taught skills. No, they were already skilled. That's why they grabbed them, because
Mm-hmm.
they already knew agriculture. They already knew blacksmithing and construction and labor and all kinds of things. And so it was, free labor to exploit.
Mm,
And during slavery, the southern states were extremely wealthy because, of course, they were. They were
yeah.
exploiting labor, and that's how you make billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how did that go for them? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So, and just once again, America, I would like to remind you that the Civil War was not about states' rights. It was never about states' rights. Check your documentation. There is an
Yep.
actual sort of constitution written by the Confederacy
Hmm.
talking about how their main reason for entering into this was to keep their slaves.
Keep their slaves. So it's Jefferson Davis, is that right? Yeah.
I think I don't remember.
President of the Confederate States, I think.
Yeah. So it's just like,
I
and people still just don't seem to know that. It's
love that
on record.
Star Trek Discovery lasted longer than the Confederacy. That's
Sucks to
pretty
be
funny.
you.
Yep.
Yeah,
So, boy, this is a heavy episode, but then it's
it
a
is.
heavy episode.
It
So,
is. It is because I mean, okay, again, master's class in acting between these
right.
two men.
Yeah. So,
And
and
sorry, go ahead.
minimal sets. I think they have what,
Mhm.
3 sets in all? They have
Yes.
Deep Space Nine, this cave. Well, there's that outside one where the shuttle is, but I think that
Yeah.
was just a
Well,
basic stage.
there was the Han shoe, but it was probably really Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine and just
redressed parts of
redressed.
Deep Space Nine or the
Yeah.
Defiant, something like that.
Yeah, because we don't see
So
much
I
of the
guess
Han
there's the
shoe.
Defiant too that we had a little bit, but
Yeah.
minimal sets,
Hmm.
uh, relying heavily on the actors for this one,
And rightly so.
especially the discussions, very tense discussions between Ducat and Cisco, and the weird spot that Cisco's put in is to be
Mm,
grateful for this murderer that saved his life, and that's a weird position to be put in.
yeah.
And he's very clear with that too. It's like, yeah, I'm grateful that you saved my life, but I cannot forgive you for the things you did. And you're still going to go to trial. That doesn't change anything.
Yeah. But it's through this it's fascinating because these hallucinations or imaginations, however you want to put it, escalate and keep escalating throughout this episode
Hmm.
until and it keeps cracking Ducat open more and more and more to see
Yep.
the actual center inside, and it is not he is not a good person.
He is spiraling,
He is
but
evil.
yeah, he does arrive to a conclusion that he is the evil that everybody sees him to be.
Yeah, but he's just like, "Oh, I regret that I didn't kill them all. I should have
Yeah.
killed them all." That's
Hmm.
that's his big epiphany is that it's the Bajorans' fault.
Yeah.
How typical.
Yeah. It's like when Kira shows up as this fantasy figure and just laughs at him,
Mm-hmm.
doubled over laughing at him for him saying how he sought to help the Bajorans.
Mm-hmm.
She just laughs and laughs in his face.
Yeah. It's oh,
But
Nana visitor, you're so great.
but then, this fantasy version of Kira is also representative of what he thinks of the Bajorans,
Mm-hmm.
is that they're just going to resist no matter what you do.
Of
Is
course.
whatever ground you give them, they're going to take more. And there's no capitulation, no compromise.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's their ground to take.
Yeah, you don't compromise with fascists. There's this great post I saw. This is a thing that actually happened is uh some MAGA person came in with a phone, doing this kind of gotcha TikTok-y that kind of thing to go into
Mm-hmm.
this gay bar. And when the guy says, get out, she's like, well, you're not going to serve me? He's like, no. It's like, of course I'm not. Just get out. And everybody else starts jeering and telling them to get out. And there's similar stories to this too, is bartenders, when a Nazi comes into the bar, it's like, get out. Because once you allow one
Mm-hmm.
Nazi into your bar, you're a Nazi bar.
Yep.
You can't let one in.
Mm-hmm. Keep the
And that's,
fascists
yeah.
out.
And so, Bajor, the Cardassians occupying the place, no, that's their planet. You have no ownership over it. Don't just to get roll in and because you want the resources, take it over and create labor camps.
Mhm. And then expect them to be grateful to you.
Yeah.
That's the big part, expecting them to be grateful for
It's different if you're
civilizing
like
them.
immigrating to a new world and then you're becoming, integrating into their economy and into their system and working for a living and, you know, paying your sales tax and stuff like that and helping the
Mm,
community. Like with Ohio, with, dying cities in Ohio, reaching out for immigrants to move in and bolster the city and with results, but certain people just not liking that because there are people that don't look like them
mm-hmm.
in the neighborhood and don't speak like them in the neighborhood, and just this fear of the other. And
We're
you get that
all
with
the
a
same.
lot of rural areas because it's not like the cities where you bump into people different from you all the time. And it's fine. In fact, it's interesting. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you do that, I do this. There's just differences in culture that you can appreciate. It's like, oh, that's interesting food. But, it's just this fear of the things you don't understand. And you get that with like the fear of vaccines and stuff. If people would
Mm,
rather have their kid die of measles than have a vaccine because you don't understand what's in the vaccine, like you understand what's in the virus.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what's the difference? And one might save your kid's life and the other might take it, and you choose one over the other.
Yeah, you choose the
It's
my kid might die option.
Yeah, it's just absurd. Just that unnecessary fear of things that are different just because you want to live in this comfort zone. And I can understand that. I like my own comfort space, but still, it's not going to be to the point where I'm forcing people to leave my state or my country or my city, just so I don't have to see them ever.
We're all the same under our skin.
Yeah, it's
We
just
all bleed the same way. We have
Mhm.
the same organs. We have the same lifespans. We're all the same. And this packaging is what they're quibbling about. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
matter.
so superficial. The things that make people hate one another is like, oh, you have slightly darker skin than me, and therefore I hate you.
Mm,
It's absurd. Or you have a slightly different approach to God than I do,
mhm,
and therefore we'll have wars. Or
mm.
it's so absurd. And that's what the Cardassian state is. It's that level of just selfishness and just inflated ego. And imagine it's not the entire planet, it's just, the ruling class. Because imagine
Yes.
there's maybe philosophers and artists and stuff. They're probably laying low because most people like that get killed in a fascist
Hmm.
environment because of anti-intellectualism, because
Yep.
God forbid somebody smarter than you live in the world.
Yep.
But yeah, you can see how we're addressing all of this because Ducat fantastically acted,
Mm.
um, represents all of this attitude, all of the worst fascist despots, your Mussolinis, your Francos, your Hitlers, just terrible, terrible people capable of horrible, evil acts for power and out of some misplaced fear or misunderstanding or what have you, their own inadequacies that are covered up by harming others to make yourself feel better out of some kind of weird sadism.
It's just disgusting.
Hmm.
It really truly is. And I'll never understand it. I will never understand this need. And it has to come from a place of insecurity. It has
Yeah,
to, because secure people do not act that way. It's just,
yeah.
ugh. Anyway.
And so much projection.
Oh, so much.
Yeah,
So much.
there's all the things fascists blame others of doing, they do themselves because that's kind of the point.
Yes, projection.
And, you know, all of this insistence on law and order and calling anything you don't like criminals and creating laws to restrict them or to remove them from society when you yourself are just doing whatever you like lawlessly because the laws are there to protect you. They're there to bind other people because you're the one in power and you get to decide what, side of the line you stand on and what side of the line law enforcement looks the other way.
Hmm.
Yeah. Eh, it's
Yeah.
so frustrating.
You couldn't see it home, folks, but I was doing the jerk off hand motion while Dave was talking because they're all a bunch of jerk offs.
Just when I heard, I think, a cat fight outside, so that was
Oh
pretty
boy.
funny when you're doing that gesture when cats were fighting. Boy, not
Yeah.
a lot of jokes in this one, huh?
No, this one is jokeless. There's no lighthearted moments at all in this one. And you know, we can talk a little bit about Worf and the Defiant. They actually do find a distress signal that no one else had caught. And we think it's gonna be, there's gonna be Cisco and Ducat, and it's not. It's two other people.
This
And
part I actually laughed at.
yeah,
It's, yeah, they rescue these two poor souls, and they all kind of sigh in exasperation because it's not Cisco.
yeah, it's
And
two
just
women.
these poor two women, it's just, I'm so thankful they didn't actually see the disappointment in
Yeah.
everybody else's faces that their lives were saved.
Hmm.
So how frustrating would that be to know that they'd rather save somebody else than you?
Yeah. Ooh,
It's like,
ouchie.
well, we saved two people, and they're like, it's not the right two people, but okay. It's like, God, just a little bit of decorum, guys, maybe? I
Yeah.
know Cisco's important to you all, but you
You
rescued two lives. That's a win.
yeah, you
Uh,
shouldn't have sent Julian off the bridge because he could have been very empathetic to those ladies.
oh,
Anyway.
that was pretty
Mm.
cool when oh shit.
Worf.
No, well, yes, but fuck, God damn it. We were just talking about the doctor. Jesus Christ.
Julian Bashir.
Julian Bashir. God damn it. That name just completely left me.
I said it
But
like less
I
than a minute
know,
ago.
I'm telling you, things aren't sticking.
It's a day, baby. It's fine.
So Julian Bashir brings up the point, that after this message from Kira that was scrambled, but not scrambled enough not to be heard and
Mm.
understood.
Yeah.
But, she's saying, time's up. It's time you go to this other location. And Bashir's like, I didn't hear anything. Did you? And he looks kind of at the chief, and the chief's like, well, not necessarily. Jadzia is like, no, that's clear what that message was. And Worf was too. It's like, as much as I would like to continue looking for Cisco, honor dictates that I go. And Bashir's like, I don't think your honor is at the same level as Cisco's life.
Hmm.
It's not just his honor,
Hmm.
Julian. It's the 30,000 lives that they're going to go save, which you, being a doctor, should understand, having to do stuff like triage and stuff. He's
Yeah.
like, you save as many lives as you can.
Yeah.
And
I
Cisco's one life is not worth these 30,000s unless you think it is.
yeah. Well, the thing is
Yeah,
that it's not an equal scale balance there because
yeah.
these 30,000 aren't just sitting around doing nothing. They are meant to fight,
Mm.
fascism,
Well, even if
basically.
they were sitting around doing nothing,
Yeah, still
is that
you
still worth one life?
well, see,
30,000? That's
that's
quite the
the good
scale.
of the many outweigh the good of the few or the
Yeah.
one. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes you have to use that particular equation. And I do
Mhm.
like how he says that. And then Worf's like, Doctor, you may leave the bridge.
Yeah, that was really measured of Worf because Worf
Really
could have just
measured.
went up and headbutted him
Mm-hmm.
because he questioned his honor
Yep.
or the value of his honor.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just leave the bridge. You're removed. Leave
Yeah.
out of my face.
Yeah.
Go
We don't
sit in timeout. Go get on the naughty step.
put on the dunce cap. I don't know.
Yep.
It's we don't actually see Cisco getting rescued. Because basically they have a fight. Cisco and Ducat have a fight, and
Yeah,
Cisco
Cisco's
is
caught with the fork that he pulled a prong
trying
off of a tine
a time
to
activate the subspace
activate,
signal.
yeah, repair the emergency beacon,
Mm-hmm. So,
which he nearly didn't do. Then he kind of tapped it and it turned back on again.
yep. And so Ducat's taking the shuttle and leaving Cisco behind. But of course, we don't see the rescue, but we see Cisco strangely sitting almost completely up, but yet his head is kind of like tilted forward a little bit and he's
Mhm.
supposedly asleep. I don't know anyone who can sleep like that.
Yeah, and he's
It
got
just
that
was
little
weird.
foreheady strippy thing on that with the lights, the medical device on his head, probably,
He's probably got
yeah,
some head
some brain
trauma.
injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah,
So,
he got beaten with a stick, and
mm,
the whole reason why the fork, the mangled fork, got discovered was one of these scenarios where Ducat's losing it. He's seeing hallucinatory figures all over the place. He's confessing to being a murderer, and he's just shooting his phaser at these imaginary beings and nearly hitting Cisco.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then after that is when, having found the fork, he beats Cisco with his stick.
Yeah. And folks, if you haven't seen Deep Space Nine, this is going to be a spoiler, but he's not really coming back from this.
Well, we get that great oath from Cisco at the end of his very paladin of vengeance. If you've been playing Baldur's Gate 3,
Yep.
he swears that it's not the end of it, that he will
Mhm.
find Ducat and it will be the two of them. And he
Yeah.
says it in a very serious mode, uh,
Yeah.
tone.
But that's the thing is Ducat is never going to be sane again. He's gone.
Well,
He's
he's going to get particularly bad after he gets the Pa Wraith in him.
yeah, it's gonna just be a shit show. Is
Yeah.
what it's gonna be.
Well, when you start dating Kai Wynn, you know things have gone south.
Just ew. Just
Yeah.
ew. Louise Fletcher, by the way, God bless that woman.
She's amazing.
She is fantastic. Oh my God. She's just
Yep.
if this had been a movie, she would have gotten an Academy Award. She's
Yeah, you'd
just
hope so.
amazing.
Yeah, we haven't had an episode with her in it yet, so that'll
Not
look
yet.
forward to that. Is the
Yeah.
Kai Wynn definitely a love to hate character,
Oh, she is
but so well
absolutely
done.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So excellent episode on all fronts, right?
Uh, yeah, I think one of the highlights of Star Trek, particularly acting wise, but the
Mm-hmm.
writing in this is great, and even the bit parts of some of the supporting cast is well done. We got that moment between Julian and Worf, Jadzia and Kira, the Chief.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just all around great. I mean, Odo is didn't he direct this
Yes,
episode?
Renee Auberjonois did direct this episode.
Yeah, he had one little small bit where he was announcing where, kind of pointing on a map where the survivors would likely be.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, he stepped back. And
Yeah.
I think maybe every once in a while you saw him standing behind Kira
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of nodding in agreement with her. And other than that, hands off, just going to direct the episode. And yeah, you can tell, this was an actor directing because he got a lot from the actors in this.
Yes.
It's
And
kind of like something Frakes can get out of the actors. Is like when you have an
yes,
actor direct, they can really draw performances from the cast.
that's because they know both sides of it now.
Hmm.
And that's why Frakes is so good because he speaks actor.
And when you've been around other actors, you get what each other's methods are,
Hmm.
how you get a performance out of them. Some you
Yeah.
have to cajole, some you have to intimidate, some you have to draw out. Some you kind of play around with, some you kind of let them go a little bit because, if they improvise, you can really, sparkle. And sometimes it's not, it's the words on the page
Hmm.
and they'll come with that. And I could just imagine him getting to direct Jeffrey Combs, which must have been very fun.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Just so cool.
He and
Yeah.
Barbara Crampton are still great friends from,
They are. Yes.
yeah, from Beyond and Reanimator.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you want to say about this episode, or have we
I
said it all?
think we said a lot, especially regarding the horrors that it is fascism. But yeah, what an episode.
Yeah.
Just incredible performances. And oh yeah, we were going to talk about why it was called waltz. A waltz is a dance, right?
Hmm.
And a dance
Yes.
with two people, and it's particularly known for its turning in circles.
Hmm.
And kind of circles within circles, you're kind of spinning while making circles. And so you can get that with, pitting Ducat and Cisco is them dancing around each other
Yep.
and this back and around between the two of them. And so, yeah, I could see why this was called Waltz. It's an interesting title. And you're like, okay, why Waltz? It's like, oh, I see.
Yep. It became
Yeah.
apparent pretty early.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. With the opening scene with them talking
yeah.
to one another. It's like, oh, I see where we're going with this. And then just to get more of that, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, that's just a mouche bouche. And before we get the big meaty meal towards the end.
Yep.
So they're just right in each other's faces, just bare bones and tearing all the pretense away that we had in the first. All that's
Hmm.
gone. And they're just nakedly exposing, not in a physical way, but in a personal way, their thoughts of one another. It's
Yeah.
just oh, so good. Chef's kiss. This is a great episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we get to do the fun part now.
Oh yeah, we get to pick the next episode. Oh, you have a new method of doing this, right? So
I
maybe we'll
do.
have a more random number than we've been getting.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's just that, I had to unplug all of our Alexa devices because I'm not going to help Amazon store all of my conversations and keep them in perpetuity to
That's
train their
right.
AI.
Yeah, in case you haven't heard, the Echo devices will send everything you say to Amazon for training its AI and who knows what other purposes. So
Yeah, and they'll keep the
we unplugged
recordings
ours. Yeah.
for an undetermined amount of time.
Not that that
So,
would do them any good, considering how often I'm incorrect. My grammar's bad and my diction's off. So this and AI's crap anyway. It's
yeah,
horrible. They keep trying to push it on us because they don't have to pay employees if AI is going to do it instead. And it's not even artificial intelligence. It's a plagiarism machine. It just
it
vomits
is.
out whatever you feed it or shits out whatever you feed it.
I actually watched a video today about upcoming sci-fi movies,
Hmm.
and I know within my heart that the voiceover was totally AI. It
Yep.
had to have been. Nobody speaks that way.
Well,
I mean,
remember how angry I got at what was it, Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, whatever that
yeah,
Marvel series was, when they had
Secret
the AI
Invasion, yeah.
generated opening credits?
Credits, yes. Ugh,
It was ugly.
it was so ugly. And you just know when it's not a real person talking.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yep.
So anyway,
Like
but
they can't hire a voice actor to do that. That they have to program an AI to do it, so they don't have to
yeah.
pay somebody.
And honestly, like 90% of the movies were not science fiction. They were like Marvel and Superman and stuff like
Right.
that. That's not science fiction.
No.
Anyway, okay, here we go. Let me get my list up first because I want to have the list up for obvious
Stop.
reasons. List up. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Right there. Okay, all right. Here we go. Since Strange New World still has no release date, but just
Right.
this summer. We're still at a total of 944. So here we go. Let's see if this works. Hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 944. 706. Oh my God. We might be in New Trek territory. I don't think we
Uh,
are, though. I don't think we
that's
are.
probably late, so that might be Enterprise, possibly.
706. Let's see here.
Enterprise. It'd be nice if it's Discovery.
It's not. It's not. 706. Oh my God, it's Stormfart Part 2.
Stormfart. It's actually Stormfront, but you said it wrong once, and so it's Stormfart ever since. So Stormfront Part 2, did you
Yes,
say?
Stormfront Part 2. But
So
it will
another
always be
two-parter that we're
Stormfart.
splitting up.
Yeah.
All
Patrick's
right.
gonna be so excited because he loves Stormfart.
Nice.
It was one of those things, and it happened on a podcast because
Yep.
when I was trying to say Stormfront Part 2, sometimes I'm dyslexic with my words
Or
and
just you kind of
and
cram it
mush them
together so
together.
you get to part before you get
Storm,
to front.
so it's
Yeah.
Stormfart.
Yep. That's seems like an ADD thing to do when you're kind of
Yeah.
rushing through a sentence, so
Yep.
it compresses.
Yep. So there we go. This is only our second Enterprise episode, is it not?
I think we've done two
Oh, two of
enterprises.
them?
This might
Okay.
be our third
All right.
because I know we must have because we spoke, I think, twice about the weird morality of Trip.
Yeah, I just don't remember what the other one was. I'll have to go back through our list of episodes.
Or I think
But
there's one where they have to make cannons.
yeah, that was the one where they are trying to get to this rendezvous and they have been attacked by this other ship and they need stuff and they take it from this other ship instead of
Yeah, and then there
trading
was
with
one
them.
other one.
And the guy who was the commander of that other ship was Damar in Deep Space Nine. So
Right.
fun times there. Yeah. So that's gonna be interesting.
Maybe there was only one episode of Enterprise we did. It seemed like there was two, but maybe I'm
Well,
wrong.
let me go back through the
I
list.
guess I could look too, couldn't I?
Oh no, we've had more than two.
Oh,
Or more
really?
than more than one. So we had Silent Enemy, and then we also had Damage, and
Oh,
that was the
all
one you were
right.
talking about.
Oh, yeah,
And
Silent
now,
Enemy was the one with those weird aliens that were
yes,
CG.
yep,
That's right.
yep.
And we
So,
had Hoshi losing her top
mm-hmm,
inexplicably.
mm. So, yeah, so Stormfront Part Two or Part Two for those who know, and if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. You still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because I messed up my windows now.
Oh no.
So I'm trying to come back
It
to you here.
it shouldn't matter because
Okay.
I can still hear you and the recording is still going
All
on,
right.
so it's all good. All right
Excellent.
then. Dave, do you have
Uh-huh.
anything to tell the people of the world?
Oh, you can find me on Blue Sky, DJ Evil Dave. We have a YouTube channel, DJ Evil Dave with underscores. I also have some playlists on there for music videos and trying to get episode songs with that share the episode title of the Star Trek that we review. A
Hmm?
playlist of those.
Waltz should be pretty easy.
Waltz should be really easy, you would think. I could even put Chopin on there, one of his waltzes with numbers.
Hell
If
yeah.
I could find that one that's just simply called Waltz, I can put that up there. Got a SoundCloud page where we put up the most recent episode of the podcast. Also, the podcast is on Hear This. So if you want to not use Apple or Spotify or other podcatchers, you can listen to it directly because it's the MP3 that I send directly to either SoundCloud or to Hear This, and so it doesn't go through any other companies. It's like directly to that. Hear This has the whole podcast on there. Oh, been messing around with the DJing some, but for my own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Been messing around with the beat matching and the Camelot wheel, if you know what that is. Camelot wheel's interesting because it's to match the key for songs that you're mixing, and it uses music theory to do fifths. So
Nice.
if you're within a fifth note, or if you're from major to minor, so you could go from, was it A to E, I think, or you could go to E to A, up or down the scale, or you can go from an A major to an A minor, and it creates kind of a pleasant chord. Like, disco is famous for fifths, I think,
Mm,
especially on keyboards. That kind of disco keyboard thing you'd get, a lot of fifths in that kind of disco organ sound. And beat matching is a little trickier, as I have to kind of mess around with tempo, but I've been trying my hand at that. Oh, working overtime. Don't really have much else than that, but yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. Oh yeah, we have Shield Modulation on Blue Sky as well. The actual podcast feed.
yep.
So, how about yourself?
I read a lot of books. A lot of the time they're for independent authors, and I get to read them before they're published and tell them if they have any errors in it, and then also write reviews when they come out. I do that a lot of my time now because it's fun,
Yep.
and I've gotten to know some really great people because of that.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Instagram at Brandy Jackala, just all together, no spaces or underscores or dots or slashes or anything. And also on Blue Sky is just Brandywine because it got in there first, bitches.
Yep.
Got in there.
Yeah, I think you
So
got an early invite, didn't you?
I got one. I think it was from Dan, if I remember right. Oh, and
Nice.
thanks again to Dan for allowing us to use a copy of his spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
I did a podcast with Dan a few days ago that is out now. It is a Positively Trek episode, and we're talking about comics. I get to be the comics person for Positively
Ooh.
Trek, which makes me very happy. And we're talking about the Lore War #1, which is kicking off a crossover with both the Star Trek running, main running series and also the Defiance series. So, and let me tell you, this is some of the most unhinged shit I've ever seen. So, that issue is out now. So if you haven't grabbed it and want to see some weird shit from lore that you've not seen before,
Hmm.
do it. Or you can just listen to the podcast as we spoil everything. So,
Right.
and yeah, you can find that on all podcatchers. Once again, that's Positively Trek. And so thanks, Dan. And stop apologizing for the whole Picard prodigy mistake thing. Okay. That
Yeah,
was
we
me.
fixed
That
it.
was on me. So it's fine. Also, hi to Patrick, Storm Fart Buddy. Aren't you excited? And hi to Tim, who's I've been talking with this past week. And
Nice.
he's struggling to understand the shit that's going on in this country. And I'm like, there is no way to
Mm.
understand it.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Swings and roundabouts, I think the British say.
Yep, there you go. So that is it for us today. And in 2 weeks, we will get into Stormfart Part 2. And until then, just be kind, have fun.
Oh, and if there's any consolation, fascist empire's length is typically around 5 years,
If they make it that
against
long.
the standard imperial thing of, I think it's 250. So
Mm,
kind of weird math exchange there, but there you go.
yeah.
So it's kind of funny how Cardassia is going to see its end of role by
Hmm.
the end of the series. So,
I feel bad for the planet because, not everybody
yep.
there is a dick.
Nope, but
We're just
that's what
only seeing the
happens.
dicks. The dicks are in power, so they're the ones at the
Yeah.
forefront, and that's all we see.
That's weird thing about the Terran Empire is how it doesn't self implode,
I know. Well, it
because it
kind of
really should.
does.
Yeah, I guess it
It kind of
does.
it does little implosions,
Yeah,
because with each new emperor, it just,
yeah. It's just not sustainable. Fascism is not a sustainable way to run any kind of country or
no.
organization.
Mm-mm. All right, there you go. That's your thought for the week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Well, we won't see you. We'll talk at you, and you can imagine
Hmm.
seeing us. If you don't know what we look like, I'm
You
sorry.
might know because my profile picture is on Blue Sky, so you can
Yeah.
see me, what I look like. And yours, I think, is kind of a lower
It
deck style animation of your face.
Yeah, well, the full picture is actually, I can't fit it in there, is me in a lower deck science uniform.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but I'm all lower deck style. So,
Yep.
but I treasure that, and I just use it for all my social media now because I
Mhm.
don't necessarily want everyone to know what I look like. So there we go.
And it's close enough so they can kind of get a
Yeah.
gist of what you look like.
Yeah.
Because it
All
is
right.
designed after you. So
All
yeah.
right. All right. We're
We're
done.
done.
We're done. We're
Okay.
done. We're done.
Out of here.
Bye.
Still up.
Still up.